Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take your sources, dig through the details, find the fascinating nuggets, and distill it all down just for you. It's like having us dive into the material so you don't have to, bringing back the most important and surprising insights. Today, we're plunging into an ancient narrative found within Buddhist texts. You've shared sources centered around a really powerful story known as the Rohiṇīkhattiyakaññāvatthu. This tale brings us face to face with the Buddha himself, a noble woman suffering from, well, a debilitating and mysterious illness, and a truly unexpected revelation that traces her current condition back to actions she took in a past life. It's quite something.
That's right. And our mission, you could say, with this deep dive is to go beyond just retelling the story. We want to really unpack the core teaching embedded within it specifically, that intricate connection between our actions, our emotions, and the consequences. The consequences that ripple through experience, especially concerning powerful states like, well, anger and envy.
Okay, so let's open up these sources and see where this story begins. We find Venerable Anuruddha arriving in the city of Kapilavatthu, and he's accompanied by 500 monks, a large group.
Yeah, and as you'd expect, the relatives are all gathering to welcome such a respected figure, but the sources immediately note that one person is conspicuously absent, Rohiṇī, who is Venerable Anuruddha's own sister.
Right. Naturally, he asks, where is Rohiṇī? Why isn't she here?
And her reason, as reported in the text, it's quite stark. She's suffering from a severe skin disease described as chavarogo. This condition causes her immense embarrassment, lajjaya, which is why she's keeping herself hidden away.
So Anuruddha asks for her to be summoned, and despite her clear reluctance, she apparently arrives still covered up. She confirms her condition and her shame.
Okay, and what happens next is really a key moment. Instead of just focusing on the illness itself, Anuruddha's response is immediately directed towards possibility, towards action. He asks her if this disease prevents her from performing acts of merit, puñakattu. It's a real pivot, from suffering to what can be done.
Exactly. He's asking, okay, this is difficult, but what can you still do? And he suggests a specific act of merit, building a seating hall, an asanasala, for the monastic community.
Rohiṇī is receptive but practical. She asks, well, how can she possibly fund this? Anuruddha suggests she sell her valuable ornament collection, the Pasadena. The sources even specify its value at 10,000.
Wow, 10,000.
Yeah, it gives us a sense of her status and the scale of the sacrifice involved.
So she agrees to the funding, but then she asks, okay, who's going to actually do the work? The building work.
Right. And Anuruddha immediately delegates the task to the relatives who are present, stating it's their responsibility. He also adds that he himself will stay there to help oversee the project, make sure it gets done properly. And the sources provide some incredibly specific details about Rohiṇī's personal contribution once the hall is, being built. It's planned as a 2-story hall, the Vimika Asanasalai, and Anuruddha gives her these precise instructions. From the time the upper planks, the Upari Padarana, are laid, she must daily and regularly sweep underneath Heda Nibata Samajitva and provide water pots Nibatad Baniyaga Upatapahi.
Daily sweeping and providing water. It sounds like a very humble, hands-on, and consistent act of service.
Exactly that.
And she does it. She sells the ornaments, funds the construction, and diligently performs the daily sweeping and water provision.
She does. And here's where the sources report a fascinating and seemingly immediate physical outcome. It says, as she was sweeping the hall, Asanasalai Samajansiava, her skin disease began to wither away, Chavirogo Milai.
Just like that, while she was sweeping.
That's what the text says. It directly links the physical act of sweeping, this ongoing act of humble service and merit, to the physical healing process actually beginning.
Incredible. So the hall gets finished, and Rohiṇī invites the Buddha and the whole assembly of monks, the Bhikkhu Sangha, for a meal, filling the new hall.
Right. And after the meal, the Buddha asks, whose donation is this? Whose offering? Anuruddha replies, it was his sister, Rohiṇī's.
The Buddha then asks, well, where is she?
Anuruddha says she's at home. Still reluctant, perhaps.
Yeah, maybe still feeling self-conscious about her skin, even though it's improving.
Possibly. But the Buddha insists she be summoned. He clearly wants to speak with her directly.
So Rohiṇī comes, pays her respects, and the Buddha asks her straight out, why didn't you come earlier when your brother arrived?
And she repeats her reason. The skin disease, the chavarogo, and her embarrassment, the lajjaya.
Okay, and this is the absolute turning point, isn't it? Here's where the deep dive into cause and effect truly begins. The Buddha then asks her the critical question, Does she know why this disease appeared on her body?
And she replies, honestly, no. She has no idea.
And then comes the revelation.
Yes, the powerful revelation straight from the source text. The Buddha states unequivocally that the disease arose because of her anger. The text says, Tavakotan nisa upano esoti. It arose dependent on your anger.
Wow. So the sources are telling us this wasn't just some random affliction, some bad luck.
Not at all. It was presented as a direct consequence, specifically linked to a powerful negative emotion, anger.
That immediately establishes the story's central theme then.
Exactly. That states of mind, particularly intense ones like anger, can have these profound, tangible, and, well, long-lasting physical consequences.
Rohiṇī must have been astonished. She asks, what could I possibly have done?
Understandably. And the Buddha then takes her and us back in time. He recounts a story from a past life, an Atitahari. In that life, Rohiṇī was the chief queen, the Agamahis of the king of Baraksi, and she harbored this deep, bitter grudge, Akare Benthetva, against a female dancer or actress, Anakikichi, who belonged to another king. Some sort of rivalry, it seems.
And the sources detail her malicious plan. Driven by this intense grudge, wanting to cause suffering dukkhamasaupadesami for this dancer, she arranged to have intensely itchy bean powder, Mahakajufalani, brought to her. Nasty stuff.
Very nasty. And the way she used it is disturbingly specific. She secretly put the powder into the dancer's bed, her coverings, her furniture, making sure the dancer wouldn't suspect a thing.
And the sources add this particularly cruel detail. She even sprinkled it directly on the dancer's body, all while pretending it was just a game or a prank Katie Manavia.
So it wasn't just sabotage, it was deception laced with real cruelty.
What happened to the dancer?
The consequence was immediate and agonizing. Her body broke out in boils and swellings, right away, and when she went to lie down, the powder in the bed caused even harsher pain, Karataravedana Upaji, just awful suffering.
And the Buddha leaves no room for doubt about the connection here. He states explicitly that Rohiṇī, in her present life, was that chief queen, Tadagamahesi Rohiṇahosi.
Yes, and that she was the one who performed that action, Tadataya Chitakamakata. The suffering she inflicted on the dancer out of anger and envy is presented as the direct cause, the karmic seed that manifested as her present skin disease.
The direct line drawn across lifetimes.
Precisely. And following this powerful account, the Buddha underscores the lesson. He states that even a small amount of anger or envy, apamatakopi hikotova isova, is not appropriate or proper to act upon. Katuna yutarapayeva.
So it's not just about huge acts of revenge, but even smaller impulses.
That seems to be the message. Even the tendency or the slightest indulgence in these emotions is cautioned against.
He then delivers a specific verse, a gatha, that kind of encapsulates this core teaching about overcoming these negative states. The essence, as I understand it, is abandon anger, renounce conceit, overcome all fetters. Suffering doesn't fall upon someone unattached to name and form, free from defilements.
That's the core. And the sources provide helpful explanations for these terms, giving us deeper insight. Abandoning anger, kotaja. This means getting rid of anger in all its forms, sabakara pikota, like a total letting go.
Not just managing it, but really abandoning it.
Right. Then, renouncing conceit, upajaheyamana. This refers to overcoming the 9 kinds of conceit, navavitapi mana. These are all the ways the ego asserts itself, comparing, I am better, I am worse, I am equal.
Okay.
Overcoming all fetters, sayajana sabamati kameya. This means breaking free from the 10 types of bonds, dasavitapi sabaktaijana, that tie beings to the cycle of suffering. The example given is sensual desire, kamaragasarjana, showing these are the deep ties to worldly pleasure and existence.
Makes sense. And the next one is interesting.
Yes, being unattached to name and form, namarupasmimazajana. Name and form, namarupa, basically refers to our moment-to-moment experience, our body and mind. Attachment, the sources explain, means clinging to them as mine, my body, my feelings, mama rupa, mama vedanati dananayana.
And that leads to suffering when things change.
Exactly. Suffering arises precisely when these impermanent things change or break down. Tasminika bijamane sukati vihanyati. To be unattached is not to cling in this possessive way. Eva gantampapana nasajati nama.
Got it. And the last part.
Being free from possessions or defilements. Akinyukana. This isn't just about not having physical stuff, but more about the inner baggage of defilements like passion, anger, delusion, ragadina, apavana, being free from those internally.
Okay.
And the result of cultivating this whole state, as the verse says, Suffering, dukkha, does not fall upon nanupatanti, such a person. It's presented as a direct path to freedom from suffering.
And the sources also note the significant spiritual impact of the Buddha's discourse right then and there, the Desanavasan. Many listeners present achieved stream entry, Sotāpatti, and other spiritual fruits. It shows the power of this teaching for liberation.
Absolutely. And most significantly for our story, Rohi herself experienced a profound personal transformation. The sources explicitly state she became established in the fruit of stream entry, Rohipi Sotāpatti patihahi.
So she didn't just hear the teaching, she realized it deeply. It clicked.
It really clicked, and connect that spiritual attainment to another really striking physical change mentioned in the text. Immediately, Takafayavasa, upon attaining stream entry, her body became the color of gold. Suvanafa.
Whoa. So that's beyond just the initial healing from the sweeping. This is like an instant, dramatic, physical manifestation of her deep inner purification.
That's how it reads, the external reflecting the internal liberation, a complete transformation.
Okay, but the story doesn't end there, does it?
No, the narrative continues Rohi's journey beyond this life. The sources state that upon passing away from that existence, Tadhukuta, she was reborn in the Tavatisa heaven, Tavatisa Bhavani, heavenly realm.
And they add a specific detail. She was reborn within the domain, sort of the boundary area, of 4 sons of gods, Katuna Devaputana Samantari Nibatitva. And she attained incredible beauty, described as supreme beauty of form, Pasadika Rupasopagapata.
And her appearance in this heavenly realm had an immediate and, well, powerful effect on these 4 divine beings. The sources say they were instantly filled with affection upon Asinaha and began arguing amongst themselves.
Arguing? About what?
Each one claimed she was born within their boundary, Mama Simaya Antonibatta, Mama Simaya Antonibattati Vivadanta. They all wanted to claim her, basically.
Huh. So this dispute became serious enough that they decided to take it to the top, to Sakka, the king of gods, Sakasa Devaranyo, asking him to settle the matter.
Exactly. And get this, even Sakka himself, upon seeing her, became instantly filled with affection. Sakopita olokateva apanasinaho. Her beauty was that striking.
And the descriptions the 4 gods give when Sakka asks how their minds were affected, they're so vivid. One says his mind couldn't settle, like a war drum so gamapiri via sandistitude nasaki.
Yeah. Another's mind flowed quickly like a mountain river, Pabatanadivya, Sagapavatari, intense energy.
One's eyes bulged out like a crab's kakakakasa via a kininakamisu.
Yeah, quite the image. And one's mind couldn't stand still, like a flag hoisted on a stupasetya usapitatadavi and the kalatatanasaki, just completely agitated by her presence.
So these details really bring the impact she had to life. What did Sakka do?
Well, Sakka's response to them is equally intense. While acknowledging their strong feelings, he declares that if he obtains her, he will live, and if not, he will die. Ahat pane maya labanto jivisami, alabantasame maranchita visatiti. That's a pretty extreme statement of how smitten he was.
Wow. Okay, so what did the 4 gods say to that?
Well, perhaps swayed by his status, or maybe just the sheer intensity of his declaration, they yield. They basically say, okay, Maharaja, you don't need to die, Maharajatmaka Marina atonatiti, and they release her to him. Dasakasa visajitva pakamisu.
They back down.
They back down. And the narrative concludes her story in the heavenly realm by saying she became very dear and pleasing to Sakkappiya Ahosi Manapa. And he could not refuse her wishes, even concerning specific places she wanted to visit for amusement. Sakopi pasavakana pakipitona sakyavati.
So, from suffering and isolation because of a disease caused by past anger, all the way to captivating the king of the gods with her beauty and influence. That's quite an arc. Wow.
Yeah, that really was a journey following Rohiṇī. Starting with that mysterious illness linked directly to past anger and envy, moving through acts of merit like the sweeping, and then that profound spiritual realization bringing immediate healing and, well, transformation, all the way to rebirth in a heavenly realm where her presence captivated even the gods. And the key insights we've pulled from these sources are, I think, really powerful and interconnected. The story vividly illustrates the far-reaching consequences of negative emotions and harmful actions, showing how they can ripen into suffering, even across lifetimes. But it also highlights the potential for healing and transformation, not just through external acts of merit like the sweeping, which seem to start the process, but fundamentally through inner purification and spiritual realization. That attainment of stream entry was the real turning point, reflected both internally and externally.
Right. Ultimately, the narrative presents letting go of anger, conceit, and clinging, not just as like a moral good, but as the direct path to freedom from suffering, a path demonstrated powerfully by Rohiṇ's own transformation.
Couldn't have said it better. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into these rich and really fascinating texts.
And as we wrap up, here's a final thought for you, the listener, to consider. This ancient narrative from your sources suggests such a profound connection between our inner emotional states, our actions rooted in those states, and the quality of our experience. Not just in this moment, but potentially far into the future, even across lifetimes, according to this story. What might Rohi's journey suggest about the unseen links between your own mind, your actions, and their consequences? What stands out to you from her story?